Hey everyone, welcome back. I am definitely a little bit too late for my Vivian guide, but it's finally here. I did a lot of tests both in-game and also on the calculator, which, in case you don't know, it's already updated with all Vivian's kit, and soon I also add Hugo's kit based on the trial mode. So if you're interested in an early guide for Hugo, remember to subscribe because I'll be covering it this week. As usual, let's start with a quick overview. Vivian is an off-field anomaly unit, meaning that she specializes in providing damage and anomaly buildup even when outside the field. If you know Bernice, then you pretty much understand how Vivian works, which also includes her flaws. She's not a good on-field unit, mostly because her basic attacks lacks damage and buildup. But unlike Bernice, Vivian's Quick Assist gives a really nice basic attack skip, which enables the best part of her kit. For her kit, let's make it simple and talk only about what matters. Starting with her resources, she has two different types of feathers, the guard feather and the flight feather. The small circle in the middle represents the flight feathers and the outer circle represents guard feathers. Flight feathers are pretty much useless and the only purpose is to become guard feathers. And now you must be thinking, but how do I do this? Well, it's quite simple actually. Vivian has this diving attack, which transforms all your flight feathers in guard feathers all at once. You don't even need to do a basic attack while in the air because Vivian automatically does it when swapping out of the field while in the flying mode. So all you need to do is use your waltz, which is the last basic attack which Vivian dashes to the enemy, or use an EX special, chain attack or ultimate, and there you go, you are in the flying mode. Yes, the actual name is Fluttering Flock, but flying sounds easier for everyone to understand. Before talking about her core and how to use guard feathers, it's important to understand how you generate feathers. Your waltz attack can generate one feather or two if you happen to use it to dodge an attack. EX Special generates 3 feathers, Chain Attack and Assist Follow-Up generates 2 feathers, and the Ultimate generates 5 feathers. All of these are flying feathers, so remember to convert them to guard feathers by using the diving attack. Guard feathers are used whenever someone in your team uses an EX Special, or if you are activating her additional ability, whenever someone besides Vivian triggers an anomaly on the enemy. This attack has a good damage scaling and a lot of build-up, but most importantly, it triggers Vivian's core. Vivian's core can be quite hard to understand, but to make it simple, consuming guard feathers triggers another instance of anomaly damage based on the stats of the current anomaly on the enemy. So if the enemy has no anomaly on them, it just means that you consume guard feathers without triggering a bloom. Yes, this means that it benefits from things like Jane's crit rate and crit damage for assaults, Grace, shock damage, and any other effects that targets anomalies. If you don't know how anomaly works, I have a guide which goes over all the details of how it works, which I'm going to be linking in the top right corner. Oh, and by the way, while the skill description says every 10 points, it actually scales with every single point of anomaly proficiency. So just stack as much as you can. Vivian also applies a poison effect on enemies under anomaly effects, which deals 55% of her attack as ether damage every half a second. This triggers anomaly-related effects such as shock and corruption damage, which is really good since it pretty much guarantees that you always get the maximum damage on these anomalies. Outside of it, despite being able to scale with crit stats, the overall damage is not that good. It still makes up around 17% of your total damage, but unlike Bernice, Vivian's damage scaling on most of her abilities are not as huge as Bernice, which is exactly what makes crit Bernice something viable. So you heard me, no crit Vivian, please. Besides enabling more uses of her guard feather, her additional ability also gives increased damage to corruption and corruption-based disorders, which, once again, just gives more reason for you to run Vivian alongside another anomaly unit. The rest of her kit doesn't need a lot of explanation, but there are a few advanced tips to maximize resource efficiency and generation as well. The most important one is, as I mentioned before, Quick Assists. Vivian Quick Assist skips her basic attacks straight to the waltz one, which is the most important for her. It generates feathers, puts her in the flying state, and this enables guard feathers for you. You get iframes during the whole diving attack, and you always use it once you swap Vivian away. So as soon as you start any ability that puts you on the flying state, you can swap away and Vivian will be completely invulnerable for the whole duration. For a quick advanced combo, you can start with a quick assist, use your basic attack, followed by EX special, but hold down your dash button during the EX special animation. This makes you go back to the waltz attack instead of the flying mode. Now just use another basic attack and swap Vivian away. This generates a total of 5 feathers for you, so it's a really good way to refill your feathers if you don't have enough decibels for her ultimate. Of course, if you trigger a dodge during the first waltz or you have one spare feather before this combo, you can swap Vivian away as soon as you start the EX special animation. This flying cancel also works with your ultimate, so in case you have feathers and want to optimize the efficiency of it, you can just hold down your dash button during the ultimate animation and avoid entering the flying state. For skill upgrade priority, focus on Vivian's core since this is really important for Vivian DPS. After this, you should focus on her basic attack, ultimate, and EX special, followed by assist and as your last priority, dodges, which honestly, I wouldn't even upgrade since you're probably not using this, and if you're using, you're probably playing Vivian wrong. Now for the part most of you actually watch, let's talk about her build. For these stats, as you can imagine, Phaeton's Melody 4-piece will be the best option for you. Vivian can benefit from all of these stats, and in most cases you can easily find yourself with a high uptime on the 4-piece effect. That's because Vivian's kit is reliant on EX special of your team, which makes it easy to activate before swapping to Vivian and building up Anomaly. For the 2-piece set, you should run any Anomaly proficiency set. To better illustrate the damage difference, I did team calculations for this guide, since Vivian is usually being paired with another Anomaly unit. While Chaotic Metal and Hormone Punk gives higher damage for Vivian, the Bloom damage is lowered, and this means less damage for your whole team. Even if Vivian was the only carry of your team, a Bloom scaling is really important, so basically just stack as much Anomaly proficiency as you can. For these stats, as you can imagine and I explained before, you should run Anomaly proficiency on slot 4. I won't repeat myself, so if you need to understand why, you probably need to go back a few seconds and listen again. For Disc 5, Ether damage is the best option, but the difference is quite minimal, so running anything with a lot of Anomaly proficiency rolls will be just fine. For Disc 6, just run Anomaly Mastery. You'll lose a lot of build-up if you remove Anomaly Mastery, and disorders are quite good for Vivian, since her additional ability increases the Corruption disorder damage. Running Energy Regeneration can increase the number of blooms, but since most teams are limited on the number of EX special you can trigger anyway, losing one extra disorder can lead to some DPS loss. For substats, as you can guess, Anomaly proficiency will be your top priority. Follow this with attack percentage, flat attack, flat penetration, and lastly, crit stats. Now, let's talk about weapons. As usual, Vivian's signature will be the best option for her, but you already know this, right? You just want to know how important it is for Vivian, so let's jump straight to the numbers while I'll give some considerations on these options. As you can see, Whipping Gemini is a really good option for Vivian, and that's because she scales really well with Anomaly proficiency, and even more if you have a well-built second Anomaly unit in your team. All other options are honestly not as good as Gemini, and I wouldn't recommend running most of them. The issue with Gemini is that it has a ramp-up time, and you always lose all stacks after the boss recovers from stun. So you need to play around this, otherwise you risk losing a lot of damage potential. Vivian's signature removes this because it's really easy for you to keep this with 100% uptime. Even if you mess up and use your cooldowns after the enemy recovers from the stun, you won't get a huge drop on your damage. Do I think it's a must pull? Certainly not, but I'll be talking about this later alongside my pull recommendation for her. Before this, let's talk about her Mindscapes, because some of these are really good. Mindscape 1 offers a huge damage potential for Vivian for two different reasons. Not only do you get 16% anomaly and disorder damage multiplier, you also generate extra flight feathers just by consuming guard feathers. Even when not taking into account the extra blooms it can provide, it still offers around a 12% increase on your team damage. It gets even more value if you manage to keep triggering blooms on the enemy. Mindscape 2 is completely insane and one of the best in the game. Close to the value Jane's Mindscape 2 provides, but Jane Mindscape 2 works only for her, while Vivian's Mindscape works for everyone. It adds a lot of increased damage potential for her bloons, and the resistance penetration works for all attributes. So as you can imagine, it's just extra damage for anyone. As usual, Mindscape 3 and 5 won't provide a lot of value, but it's even worse on anomaly units, so let's just ignore them. Mindscape 4 offers some damage increase, but honestly, it's a really small DPS increase. That's because Vivian's damage multipliers are not the best, so the crit rate won't provide a lot of value. And finally, Mindscape 6 is quite interesting. It increases your ether damage and flight feather generation, but also makes your diving attack consume all of your guard feathers and trigger a bloom, but with increased damage based on the number of guard feathers consumed. This is a hard Mindscape to measure the value, since it all depends on your rotation and optimization. You could, for example, trigger 10 or more blooms on the stun window. It just depends on how you're going to rotate Vivian's feathers. Now, should you pull Vivian? Well, if it's a waifu pull, that's totally fair, and all I can say is good luck for you. But for those looking for the best value on their pulls, here's my personal opinion on Vivian. Vivian is a really good unit, assuming your account is already playing around anomaly damage. If you own Jane or Yanagi, Vivian is a really great unit for you. If you only own crit-based characters, Vivian is not going to add a lot for you. And if you plan to invest in Vivian, then going for her Mindscape 1 before going for her signature will be the best choice. The extra feathers and increased damage are really good and can provide higher damage output than her weapon. Going for Mindscape 2, the damage increase is just massive, and once again, it's way better than her weapon. After Mindscape 2, going for her weapon is totally fine, since Mindscape 3 and above doesn't feel that good anymore. Actually, I would only recommend going higher if you want the name card or you're going for Mindscape 6. Also, signature dupes are not worth it, so just keep it at Mindscape 2 Phase 1. And now let's talk about teams and my experience on some of these. One of the best Vivian teams right now is Vivian, Jane, and Astra. Vivian bloons can benefit from Jane's critical assaults, and this means a lot of damage for her bloons. Astra adds a team-wide buff and also makes this team feel super smooth. That's because Astra provides easy quick assist to Vivian, which reduces her field time and speeds up feather generation. Yanagi can be played alongside Vivian, since Vivian's additional ability increases polarity disorder damage, and Yanagi herself is a really good on-field unit. For the free-to-play players, Piper is also a good unit, since she can trigger 2 Vivian bloons, assuming you are going for her finishing move. However, unlike Jane, Piper's bloon damage is way lower. You might have noticed that I used Astra in all of these things, but don't worry, you can play using other units such as Lucy, Nicole, Rina, Pulchra, and Trigger. I wouldn't recommend playing her without quick assist, since it makes a huge difference on how Vivian will feel in the field. Team-wide buffs are also appreciated, since it increases both anomaly units' damage potential. A not so conventional team is Vivian, Bernice, and a support unit, but personally speaking, I don't like this team at all. Vivian and Bernice are not great on-field units, and while you get the idea of triggering a lot of bloons by quick tapping Bernice EX special and benefiting from the huge scaling bloons get on fire anomalies, all you can do while waiting for more feathers is field one of these units, and they don't feel good at the field. It's definitely a burst team with some potential, but I don't like how these units feel. Triple anomaly teams are simply not recommended. First, you are losing a lot of utility by slotting 3 DPS units on your team, and second, Disorders puts all anomalies on cooldown. So even if you keep alternating build-ups, at the end, you still get hit by the anomaly internal cooldown. For Bangboos, robbing will be one of the best options for Vivian, since you only need 1 unit to activate the additional ability. Even better, the additional increases the build-up of the active skill, not the chain attack, so you can completely skip the chain attack and still benefit from the increased damage and build-up. Other options include the classic utility Bangboos such as Nap, Butler, or Nightboo, or also other anomaly Bangboos to provide some increased build-up for whatever attribute you are running on your team. And that's everything for my Vivian guide. Remember to subscribe because I'm also working on an early Yugo guide, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below or join my Discord server. Thank you so much for watching this video, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in my next video.